Hey everybody, Steve the Amateur Historian. I'm in southwest Portland, kind of the Duniway Park area, just a couple blocks across Highway 26. Once you cross Highway 26 going north this direction, you start going into downtown Portland. So this is southerly direction, and this is kind of just beautiful West Hill, southwest Portland. Southwest Portland is gorgeous. But for our sake, we're not talking about anything that's gorgeous or pretty today. This right here is the intersection of Southwest Sheridan and Southwest 4th Avenue. And this is the site where someone got shot on a new episode of Historic Murders of Portland. But before we get to the meat of this story, the crime that took place here at 4th and Sheridan, I have to lay the groundwork, because pretty much most of this video, most of the circumstances surrounding this story literally covered a 2-block radius. You know, mostly from 6th and Sheridan to 4th and Sheridan. And the murder victim in this case, which if the details given about this guy are true, I don't really have a whole lot of sympathy for this guy. This is the story of the shooting of Carlo Bornonto. This is another one of those cases that, you know, first couple of years of the 20th century, and there was a lot of these Italian on Italian murder crimes. And you go, I mean, this area we're in, and then you go a little bit further on, up over the bridge and kind of where Portland State is now. That was where a lot of the city's Italian population was. It's regarded, back in the day, it was regarded as Little Italy. And Little Italy, that terminology, plays its part in the start of this story, because it was regarded as being in a house, some house located in Little Italy. It was very mysterious. They never gave an address, so I don't know exactly where it happened, but this young man, 24-year-old, Louie, his name was spelled so many different ways, but I think in the end his last name was Ferrari, like the car. Louie Ferrari had a younger sister. Now this is July 1905, for the record. He had a younger sister, he had a younger sister that he caught wind. Carlo Bornonto, who was an older gentleman, I mean not older, but older than him. Carlo Bornonto was 33 years old. So probably at least 10, 12, 15 years older than his sister. They never give his sister's age, but considerably older. And apparently, Carlo Bornonto and an accomplice took Ferrari's sister to a random house, a house in Little Italy, as it's described, with the objective was for her to, let's just say, provide them favors. And fortunately, news got back to Louie Ferrari quick enough that he obviously knew where the house was located. Oh my God, look at this place. It's all beat up and worn down. It's probably part of Duniway Park, but that is so cool. It's all filled with leaves in there. Oh, it's an old restroom. That's awesome. Sorry, I had to pause for that. Louie Ferrari finds out where his sister is, and he finds out what Carlo Bornonto, specifically what his intentions are. Immediately goes to the house, and at the final moment manages to save his sister from whatever these weirdos were going to do to her. And so there's a bit of a quarrel's going to start after that. These guys have a little bit of a vendetta against each other. Carlo Bornonto thinks he can do whatever he wants. Louie Ferrari hates this guy because he almost defiled his sister. I'd hate the guy too. And that brings us to July 21st, 1905. Here, as I'm crossing now, this today is Southwest Terwilliger Boulevard and 6th Avenue. But back in the day, this was still Well, essentially Sheridan comes through right here and ends. 6th Avenue ends here and becomes Terwilliger Boulevard going that way. So it may have been that way back in the day, but Louie Ferrari and Carlo Bornonto were actually next door neighbors that lived at approximately 6th and Sheridan. They would have lived where this big building is now. The houses that they lived in as next door neighbors would have been more or less side by side right here. And Carlo Bornonto is obviously livid that Louie Ferrari showed up and ruined his fun time. And even as Louie Ferrari took his sister and fled the scene with her, Carlo Bornonto told him he would kill him if he ever interfered with what he wanted to do with his sister. So this Carlo Bornonto guy is a real piece of shit. And again, they're living side by side, you know, somewhere in this vicinity where this big old building is today. And July 21st, Carlo Bornonto leaves his house, goes next door to Louie Ferrari's house, and he has a knife with him, I believe. And he's like, he tells him, come out here and fight me. Come out here, you know, best man wins. I win the fight, I get your sister, because you're probably going to be dead on the sidewalk. And Louie Ferrari doesn't want to fight this guy. He fends him off. He might be a little bit scared. I don't know structurally which one of these guys is tougher. I don't know if what Louie Ferrari feels is going to come as a result of this, but he fends off Carlo Bornonto. He's just standing out here yelling at him for about 30 minutes before he finally leaves. And then Ferrari feels safe to come out of his house again, which he shouldn't have been. Then again, maybe Louie Ferrari probably did feel kind of safe, because when he left later on, when he left his home back here, he was carrying a gun on him. And he leaves his home and he starts walking down Sheridan right here. He starts going this way from 6th and Sheridan down to 5th and Sheridan, and then down to 4th and Sheridan. And as Louie Ferrari crosses 5th and Sheridan right here, he's approaching 4th and Sheridan. He looks ahead, and who does he see right down there by 4th and Sheridan but Carlo Bornonto. He's walking. The two see each other. They lock eyes. Ferrari finishes his approach. Bornonto, in the vicinity of 4th and Sheridan, sees him, pulls his knife. He's apparently been drinking, no big shocker. He starts running towards Ferrari, and Ferrari starts running back the way he came, back towards 5th and Sheridan. And as Louie Ferrari's running forward, running towards 5th and Sheridan, Carlo Bornonto is bearing down on him. Louie Ferrari finally stops, pulls his gun, turns, and shoots Carlo Bornonto. And he doesn't just shoot Carlo Bornonto, he shoots him 6 times. Gunned him down on the sidewalk right here. He didn't have a prayer of survival. And when all is said and done, with what had happened, what had almost happened to his sister, with the fear that this guy had tried to put into Louie Ferrari, I don't know if I blame him for getting that gun crazy. And that's what happened to Carlo Bornonto. Or wait, I apologize. He fired 6 shots. He only hit Bornonto 5 times. My bad. He hit him in the lung. Where did he hit him? He hit him in the lung. He hit him in the shoulder. He hit him in the stomach. He hit him in the wrist. Just for good measure, he hit him twice in what the newspapers reported as the groin area. Which, I mean, if you want to talk about retribution, a guy wants to go so far. He's such a sex weirdo that he wants to lure your sister to a secluded house and then sexually assault her and then threaten you for trying to save your sister as though that's some obscene thing to do. What better retribution is there out there than to just shoot him in the dick twice? And there was a lot of misreporting going on in this case. They knew about this story about Louie Ferrari's sister being taken to this secluded house. They knew that not too long after, Louie Ferrari had gunned down Carlo Bornonto in a hail of bullets. And I think some stories initially reported that it was while Ferrari was trying to save his sister from that house that Bornonto came at him with the knife, and then he gunned down Bornonto. But the events were actually separated by at least a small amount of time. And unlike a lot of cases I've discussed in this series where people try to use whatever methods they can to forge a self-defense defense, while you can certainly argue that Louie Ferrari had a reason and a motive to shoot down Carlo Bornonto, there was no question that Bornonto had showed up at his house threatening him, wanting to fight. He threatened his life when he came and saved his sister. And while they were walking down Sheridan, you know, Louie Ferrari's walking along doing his thing. Bornonto turns, pulls his knife, and starts running at him. Like, if there's ever a case to argue self-defense, this is one of them. And you want to support Louie Ferrari. You don't justify murder. You hate that people get gunned down and see someone get gunned down on the streets like that. But when it's a real scumbag like this, and it's a guy doing it for his sister, like, I mean, Louie Ferrari was almost guaranteed to get off light in this crime, especially with the fact that it was, you know, 1905. Back then, there was a lot of cases where people would kill someone in cold blood, and they would either get off or get a small sentence. It was called honor killing. It was not legal, but it was this idea that, you know, if you were taking somebody's life for justifiable means, you were killing a guy that was trying to steal your wife. You were killing someone who was beating their children. You were killing someone who was trying to sexually assault your sister. Society was accepting of that. They would justify that. He did what he had to do. Obviously, you know, today's society doesn't function like that, but that was the attitude at the time. And obviously Louie Ferrari was going to claim self-defense, whether it was just the defense to go to or not, because, I mean, he was defending himself. I don't know if he needed to defend 5 bullets into the guy's body, but hey, I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. And the simple fact of the matter is, I don't know exactly what charge he got. I'm thinking it was probably pretty simple. He probably got off. It wouldn't even surprise me if they barely even tried to prosecute him. Part and parcel because of the things I've just discussed, but beyond that, the only articles I found on this case were published between July 22nd and July 25th, a very short period of time. And really, there was, after the 25th, when this, you know, shooting had occurred, they put the details together of what happened. There really wasn't a whole lot more to say as far as, you know, the newspapers were concerned in relation to Louie Ferrari shooting Carlo Bornonto in Southwest Portland. And you'd think that if there was some big trial or some big miscarriage of justice, or he ended up getting a life sentence for something that even society would be like, no, that's bullshit, you'd think that would have gotten published somewhere in a newspaper. And I'm sure that there were some reports on it in some newspapers, but all the newspapers I've been able to uncover, I found no information about his trial. So I don't know if he got off, I don't know if he got a slap on the wrist, a manslaughter charge, a first-degree murder charge. I'm leaning more towards a manslaughter charge, with the jury asking leniency in every way, shape, or form. It would not surprise me if this guy did 3 years or less for this shooting. He may have gotten off too. I don't know. I don't know. If I was on that trial and I was, you know, someone with the mind of someone from 1905, I probably would have let him off. Even today, I kind of want to let him off. You know, it's terrible. But yeah, that's it in terms of the murder of Carlo Bornonto, a real scumbag son of a bitch, who some would probably argue got what he had coming to him. On that happy, jubilant note, thank you so much for watching another episode of Historic Murders of Portland. Actually, this is a very simple story. Didn't find a lot of information on it, but just the backstory and how it all came out. You can't help but feel vindicated in some way, even though we're disassociated from this crime by over 100 years, you know. But what are you gonna do? Anyway, as always, remember to like, share, subscribe, hit up my Patreon if you want to. Help me out in that way. And otherwise, thanks so much again for watching yet another episode of Historic Murders of Portland. See you next time.